now we're going to talk a little bit about, really, this fits into that heart schooling paradigm that we talk about all the time, which is going for your children's hearts. Using homeschooling as a tool for that. We're going to talk about discipleship focused parenting today, what that looks like, and how you actually refine your vision with your mission, how you actually start moving in the direction of where you want to see your family, where you believe God would have your children go, the direction, and how you parent towards that end. So that's kind of where we're going today, David.
Well, I mean, so in the structure that we talk about in terms of goals, there's a big why, and we've talked about this big why often, and it comes from the story of Jesus saying, "Bring your children to Jesus, to me." And so that is your mission. Your mission is to bring your children to Jesus Christ. And so we tout that, we talk about that, and we say that that is the goal, or that is the mission that is actually given to parents. And so it's not a school teacher that is supposed to be doing that. It's not a pastor. It's not a youth pastor. That is for the parents. The parents are to bring their children to Jesus Christ. That's who Jesus is talking to, is he's talking to the parents, saying, bring your children to Jesus Christ. So the next layer on that is what we would call like a concrete goal. And what I mean by that is that mission that Jesus has given you is so big. And not only is it big in terms of just a massive goal, a massive calling, but it's something that's long term. I mean, you're never done. I mean, even with your children, we know, right? When your children move out of the house, you're actually, in our case, more busy with them than you were previous, which we love. I'm not complaining by saying that, but it surprises me.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're never done. You're never done. And so how do you measure a goal that really never has an ending to it? And so you need things that are concrete, that you can measure, that you can say, okay, how am I doing by reaching what the goal is that God has given me, my big why? How am I doing?
Yeah, and I think that that's actually one of the things that becomes very frustrating or scary for a lot of parents, because this is such a big endeavor. This is a lifelong pursuit to disciple your children, to parent them well. So how do you kind of all along the way gauge your success? And we talked a few weeks ago about benchmarks and some different things, and we'll link that podcast in here as well. We've talked about that. We've talked about a rubric to see how you're doing. So we've given you some ideas before, but today I think that the way that you approach these concrete goals from Ephesians is just really, really helpful to give very, very simple but profound things that we can parent towards every step of the way. And I hope that as we go through this, that we will be able to give you guys really some ideas for how this applies when they're little, when they're middles, when they're bigs, because I know a lot of you are in all of those different stages. So we want to be as helpful in that as we possibly can.
Yeah. And so this is going to be, what does this mean? Right? So bring your children to Jesus Christ. That is great. It's inspiring. Mm-hmm. It's motivating to hear that. But when you are faced with that big goal, that big why, that big calling that we're talking about, it immediately conjures up more questions. Yeah. Like, okay, what does this look like?
How do I know I've gotten there?
How do I know how I'm doing? What in the world am I to do now? You know, so you get inspired, and then you go to sleep, and the next morning you wake up and you go, oh yeah, I need to make sure that I'm bringing my children to Jesus Christ. What do I do? What does that look like? And that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about here. And so if you, and you literally can do this, what we're about ready to do, you literally can do this in any section of verse that is in the Bible that talks about the outward appearance of Jesus Christ working in somebody's heart. And so we are making the choice to go to Ephesians 5, and specifically Ephesians 5, 1 through 20. The other thing on this is that I've never actually gone through this material before in all together. And we are going to literally go through verses 1 through 20 of Ephesians 5. And we're going to break this out, and we're going to say, along the lines of the context of this is, my calling is to bring my children to Jesus Christ. How do I know how I'm doing? And what do I do next? What does that look like? And so that is the way we're going to be going through this. And there are 17 things in the first 20 verses of Ephesians 5 to look at. And to right before we get started, okay, what I want to remind everybody about is that the way Ephesians is structured, there is a general outline to Ephesians. So chapters 1 and 2 talk about Jesus Christ and what he has done and who he is. This is the general outline, okay? And so chapters 1 and 2 talk about who he is and what he has done. Chapters 3 and 4 talk about the impact of what Jesus has done and who he is, the impact on your heart, like internally. What does that do inside of you? And then when he gets into chapter 5 and 6, this is written by Paul to the church in Ephesus. When he gets into chapters 5 and 6, he's talking about the outward appearance of what Jesus Christ has done. Like, how is that going to look? Jesus Christ is who he is, and he has redeemed you. That has an impact inside of you. And in chapters 5 and 6, he talks about the outward appearance of what he has done.
Well, and I think it's really important to note that this would have been stunning. This would have been astonishing in that day and age, because Paul starts talking about families in a way that was utterly against the culture of the time. It was a heavily patriarchal culture, to the extent of children and wives were almost like property. The guy, the husband, the head of the house was really be all end all. And Paul, under inspiration, throws that out the window and turns everything upside down. And the way that he approaches the family, and the way that we have learned through his writings, through the New Testament, on how families are supposed to work, is a massive, massive change from what the culture of the day was. And it really, these signs, these things that we're going to talk about, were such an indication to a lost, hopeless world that this family was different. These people were different, that they stood out like a sore thumb. And isn't that really what we want for our families? We want to stand out in this wicked, broken world like a sore thumb, because we're so different. And I think one of the things that excites me so much about this context is that we actually get insight into how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this was a Roman society. So Ephesus was Roman. He may not have been talking to Roman citizens, but he was talking to people that were culturally Roman. And so the culture was completely Roman at this time. And he is telling them how to act. And it's the impact that Jesus Christ is going to have on your heart that is going to make you act this way. And so the other aspect of this is that literally your actions should evangelize. So not only should your home evangelize, that when he's talking about the home, when Paul is talking about the home, he starts in 5:22. So we're actually right before that. But what he's saying is that what you do, your actions actually evangelize. But then he continues on. Your home should evangelize purely by the way that it acts. It should actually scream Christ and who he is. And so as a parent, when you read through these, and again, we're chapter 5, verses 1 through 20 of Ephesians. And when you read through this, right, there's these 17 things that stand out. And you can, as a parent that wants to lead your children to Jesus Christ, wants to bring your children to Jesus Christ,
give them a foundation for their faith so that they can stand on their own once they've left your home, that this is a real relationship that they have. It's not just what they do because they're in your home. Rather, we want to give them a solid foundation
That's
for their
right.
faith.
That's right. And you can actually parent to these things. But not only can you parent to these things, that if you are doing a good job bringing your children to Jesus Christ, these things are going to be evident in your children.
And in you.
And in you, actually. So let's get started here. And in Ephesians 5:1, Paul talks about being imitators of God as beloved children. And so that is like the way he starts. And so the first thing that you could take from this, as Leslie was talking about, is that she's talking about who are your children imitating. And then she continued, Leslie was telling me earlier, it's what is your relationship with Christ like? Because your relationship with Christ is going to actually overflow onto your children. So do they see you when they walk downstairs after getting up in the morning? Do they see you sitting there reading your Bible, or do they see you praying? Right? When they think about what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and they think about what has been modeled for them, who do they look to? Right? And what do they see?
Yeah, you cannot imitate someone that you do not know. And so as a parent on mission, it is imperative that you are getting to know the Lord better every single day. Like David said, that you are in his word every single day, that you are talking to him every single day, seeking his face for how your family should run every single day. It is so powerful that your children can imitate you as you imitate God. That is first and foremost in all of this. And I believe that's why Paul starts there, because you can't imitate someone that you don't know. So that it is incumbent and imperative for us as parents to get to know the Lord well, to be in his word, and to really build that deep relationship with him, so that it will overflow to our kids.
And so again, going back to what your big why is, your calling is to bring your children to Jesus Christ. How do you know how well you are doing in what your calling as a parent is? Well, the first answer to that, according to Ephesians 5:1, is who are your children imitating? And you know, the other element of this is that young children, I don't know if you've seen this before, but young children imitate people that they look up to. And what I mean by that is that there are times that you can look at an older brother and they will be eating a certain way. They will be drinking a certain way. They will be tapping on the table a certain way. And then you'll look over at their little brother and they are perfectly imitating their older brother, or they're perfectly imitating their father. And that's what this verse is actually talking about, is that who are you imitating? Who is your child imitating? Who is it that they're looking up to, and they're watching them out of the corner of their eye, and they're seeing what they're doing, and they are perfectly imitating. They're walking like them. They are holding their arms like them. They are, I mean, whatever it might be. They want to play basketball because their older brother or their father plays basketball. I mean, whatever it might be, right? When they think about what it means to be an adult, what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ, who do they imitate? But not just are they thinking along the lines of, I want to be a follower of Jesus Christ, therefore I'm going to imitate. It's like this natural thing. Who do they want to imitate? Who are they drawn to? Who has that magnet to them that they want to actually follow? You can look at that and you can say, I know how I'm doing in bringing my children to Jesus Christ, because I can see who they want to imitate, and the people they want to imitate, I'm okay with.
Well, and the other side of that, as we were parenting our children from very early, and we talk about this all the time, God did so many amazing things, and we didn't even realize what he was doing at the time. We were just taking steps as God led us, and we were trying to walk in obedience. But looking back, we see all of these amazing things that he did. One of them was David and I had always had the habit of getting up and having our devotions in the morning. That led to us at breakfast, and I talk about this a lot, but it really fits here well. At breakfast time, when I knew we would all be together, I started sharing with the kids from a very little age what God had taught me in my devotions. And I would talk about it. And then that grew to them wanting to share what they learned in their devotions. And it could have been, it started out with just those silly little things they were making up that had something to do with God. But it grew to where when they were teenagers and they were really in God's word on their own, they were sharing profound things. What I didn't realize when they were very, very young that I see now is that for our children, all they knew of how Christians behaved was that when they got up, mom and daddy were already up reading God's word and praying, and then they talked about it. That's all they knew about how Christians act in their homes. We were the models for what a Christian looks like to our kids. And you are the model of what a Christian looks like to your kids. So are you one that is worth imitating as they are becoming more like Jesus? That is a question that I think for all of us who are parents on mission, who really want to bring our kids to Jesus, that is a place to just kind of park and really allow God to do a work in your heart to make sure that you are walking in such a way that you would want to be imitated.
Yes, absolutely. And the other, again, another layer on this is that we used to work in a youth group, right? And the sponsors, when we would drop the young kids off at camp, we would always watch who they went and congregated. It was like the kids that were the trouble kids in the youth group, they were like drawn to each other. And the kids that were really following the Lord, they were drawn to kids that that were also following the Lord. And so my point is that as a parent, you can look at this from two directions. One of them is that you control who is in the sphere of influence for your children. The second thing is that you can go, who is my child wanting to hang out with? Who are they wanting to imitate? You can determine how you are doing. You can use it as a measuring stick. You can use it as a ruler. How is my child doing in this aspect of wanting to come to Jesus Christ? How am I doing? Well, you watch who they want to hang out with. And that is one of the aspects of this that is really powerful, is that not only can you parent to it, you could use it as a measuring stick. Okay.
Well, it also is a really good tool as you are praying about how you are going to educate your kids. We talk all the time about how your mission is to parent your children well. Homeschooling is a great tool for that, right? Your calling is not to homeschool your children. Homeschooling is a tool to accomplish what God has called you to do. Well, with what we were just talking about here in mind, who do your kids imitate? That also should lead into these decisions that you're making. Are you going to put them in a situation where they are surrounded by people that you wouldn't want them to imitate, by adults and children that you wouldn't want them to imitate, in a system you wouldn't want them to fall prey to for 8 hours a day? Is that something that actually is a good help for you in going for the hearts of your kids? Is that actually helping you reach your mission? All of these actually factor into, as you are, as a family, are praying about, what are we going to do next year? These things actually lean into that as well. If you look at homeschooling or whatever educational outlet you choose, is a tool to help you accomplish the mission that God has given you, to parent your children and teach them diligently to love Him and love others.
That's right. So the first one is, how do you use this? Is you can parent to it and you can use it as a measuring stick. And so the first part of that is, in parenting to this, who do you put in the sphere of influence around your kids? So who are you putting around them that they want to imitate? Which, as Leslie was talking about, can come into homeschooling, right? Do you put them into a school where they spend more time there than they actually spend sleeping in their own bed at night? The second part of this is that you use it as a measuring stick. Who does my child want to hang out with? Who do they put around them? Who are they drawn to imitate? And you can determine how you are doing on this aspect, this calling that you have to bring your children to Jesus Christ based off of who they want to imitate. Okay.
As parents, though, we're just going to park here on this
I was
one
going
for
to
this
say,
whole episode.
I,
This could be,
we're,
a lifetime series we got going on here. But I think it's really important to note, as parents, to that point of who do your kids want to hang out with? Who are they drawn to? You have the privilege, the right, the responsibility to get to know those kids who are in your children's lives. So for so many, they, especially when your kids become teenagers, there's almost this abdication of who of those relationships, those friendships, and they get the freedom. My kid's shown that he's responsible, so he can go hang out. Well, yeah, that's great that he's responsible, but you still need to know those friends. And so we've talked a lot about having people into your home, hospitality, opening it up to those kids. Getting to know those other kids is a really big deal, so that you can know the heart of who your children are drawn to.
Absolutely. And so, like I was saying at the beginning, there are 17 of these.
We're not going to get through
We're
all
not
of them
getting through
this
17
week.
in this one episode. Because there's a lot of meat here, actually, guys. And the other element of this is that we talk all the time about these very big topics that are inspirational, and we want to try to bring it home for you. And even in talking about some of the smaller aspects of breaking down, bringing your children to Jesus Christ, and what does that mean? And the first one is be imitators of God as beloved children. Right? There's a lot there that we can kind of break down to in order to kind of bring that home for you. And the second aspect of that particular verse, where it says, as beloved children, right? Be imitators of Christ as beloved children. So not only are you being imitators like children, but the other aspect of that you can take is that you start early. You don't wait until they're in middle school and go, oh, I need to start figuring this out and who they're hanging out with. You need to start early. And so you need to actually be controlling who they're hanging out with from an early age. They need to actually see you worshiping the Lord from an early age. And so I'm not saying that things like children's church and Sunday school and all those things are a bad thing. What I am saying is that mom and dad, you need to have your children in services with you. They need to actually see you worshiping, and maybe not every single week, but they need to see this happen. They need to see what you do in this big room where you guys sing hymns and you listen to the pastor preach. They need to see you do this. And it is incredibly important that they understand how to act in a service. And they need to understand what you do in the service and why it's so important to you to be there every single week. And they need to be able to look up at you, and they need to see you singing. They need to see you praying. They need to see you actually being impacted by the word of God. That's a really important thing. And so they need to see this at a young age. And so I'm not just saying this in terms of getting your kids into the services at a young age. I'm not just trying to hit that. What I'm trying to say is that you need to start early with this. You need to start early in putting your kids in situations where they are around people that you want them to imitate. You need to watch them at an early age and who they try to imitate. This is something that you need to start early with.
We used to tell our kids every time we were heading to church that church was our opportunity to worship God with our friends. We just drilled that. We wanted them to understand that church was about worship. It was a time to come together with people that we love, that were in our body, to worship Jesus, to worship God with our friends. And so allowing them to be a part of that, allowing them to understand what worship looks like, then allowing them, the other thing that this was really impactful within our family was, as our kids would be in church with us, we would, or if they were at a Sunday school or whatever, every Sunday afternoon around the table, we would ask, what did God speak to you about in church? we could have all been in the same service, and God speaks to people in very different ways. And so for them to hear that, oh yeah, I didn't really pick up on that or whatever. And so going around our table, there's 6 different things that come up that God spoke to them. It's really, really powerful for them to understand that God is a personal God, that God speaks to them as individuals, sees them as individuals. That leans into that they are a beloved child of God because he cares enough to speak to them individually. So there's so many good things that come out of having your children worship God with you, with their friends in a service in that way. So that's again, just another really practical thing that you can see, and practical way to really develop and strengthen those relationships within your family as you are worshiping together and then discussing it.
Yeah. And so I guess for next week, we're going to do walk in love as Christ loved us sacrificially. And we'll get through more probably next week than what we got through this week. Theoretically. But the other thing to kind of remember as we're going through this is that we've never gone through this stuff before. We've actually talked through sections of this, but we've never actually gone through all 20 verses and actually broke it out this way for families to be able to hear and understand from us. And we have, this includes the parenting intensives, the Heart School parenting intensives that we do, the Heart School Parenting Summit. We actually spoke in Poland at a homeschool conference, and I started the first 3, and then we're not able to get through it. Maybe this is the reason why, because we started expanding on this, but we're going to be committed to actually expanding on this, because what we want to do is that we want you guys to understand what this looks like. So bring your children to Jesus Christ is the vision. That is the big why. That is what your calling is as a parent, is to bring your children to Jesus Christ. And so when you're faced with that calling, the immediate question that you should have is, okay, now what? How does that look? And that is the reason why we're going through all this, is that we want you to actually go, this is what this looks like. So I'm supposed to bring my children to Jesus Christ. Therefore, I need to be paying attention to who they want to imitate, and I need to start early. So not only do I need to be using who they want to imitate as a measuring stick, I need to actually be putting my children around people that I want them to imitate, because my mission is to bring my children to Jesus Christ. And so I want them to be around people that, to me, are more Christ-like, that actually will help them in this mission, help me in this mission of bringing my children to Jesus Christ, and not actually work against me.
And it needs to be a reminder for all of us as parents that we need to walk worthy of being imitated.
Yeah.
So that really is our challenge for you this week is, first of all, are you walking worthy of being imitated in your walk with Christ? What would it take for you to get that back on track? Within Teach Them Diligently 365, there's a whole bunch of us reading through the Bible together right now. If you're a 365 member, jump in there. You're never too late. Dive right in where we are. Let us grow together with you. If you're not a 365 member, join us now. It's a great place to be. I think it's the best place on the internet for a Christian homeschool mom, because you will constantly be challenged to walk worthy, to be worthy of imitating. But the other thing, like David noted, join us in the next Heart School Parenting Intensive. Allow us to really dive deep, to work one-on-one with you in a group setting where we answer questions. We really give practical solutions to things that you may be facing. We will be starting up another one of those cohorts in the next couple of months, but there's already an application on the website. We will link it here. You can also find it if you're on our website and you click on the Heart School button. There's all kinds. There's the Heart School book, the Heart School course, masterclass, and the Heart School Parenting Intensive application. It's all right there. I encourage you to go check that out. I think it will be a real challenge to you. I think it would be a help to your family. And I invite you to join us back here next week. Next Thursday, we're going to go a little bit deeper into Ephesians 5, look at a few more of these. But we just want it to be really practical and helpful for your family. So we invite you to join us back. Share this with some of your friends who also could benefit from it. We know we talk a lot because we just want to make sure that we are just really nailing this down for you, giving you concrete examples of what this can look like, and hopefully giving you a great vision of why it's so important. We talk all the time about how the Great Commission starts right there at home. The work that you're doing within your family is of vital kingdom significance. And David and I really just want to be here to help you do that, to encourage you, to challenge you, to point you to Jesus every step of the way. So thank you for joining us this week. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to talking to you again real soon.